Across the wide plains and quiet towns of Iowa, iron bridges stretch over rivers, valleys, and forgotten roads. By day, trains thunder across them without pause. Steel groans under weight. Rails vibrate with life. But when night arrives and the tracks fall silent, something else begins to move. Footsteps echo on wooden ties. Cold wind whistles through rusted beams. Shadows stand where no one should be. Locals say the railroad bridges remember every accident, every fall, every scream swallowed by the dark. Some bridges were built too fast. Some collapsed and were rebuilt. Some took lives long before the first train ever crossed. Those who linger after sunset report whispers drifting along the tracks. Ghostly lantern lights hovering above the rails. And figures standing motionless on the bridge. Waiting for something that never arrives. Tonight, we travel across Iowa. To uncover the most haunted railroad bridges. Places where steel and sorrow are bound together. And where the past still walks the rails. If you were crossing a railroad bridge at night and saw someone standing ahead of you on the tracks, would you call out to them, or would you turn back before the darkness answered instead? Hello, my dear friend. I hope you are safe and at ease, because the bridges we are about to explore connect more than just land. They connect memory, tragedy, and restless spirits. Iowa's railroads once powered the heart of the nation, carrying people, supplies, and dreams across endless miles. But progress came with danger. Workers fell. Trains derailed. Lives were lost in moments that no one could stop. When accidents happened on these bridges, the iron remembered. Visitors speak of sudden cold winds, voices calling from beneath the bridge, and the feeling of being watched while standing alone on the tracks. Some say time slows while crossing certain bridges. Others claim they hear trains coming that never appear. Before we step onto the rails, let me ask you something. If you were standing on a railroad bridge at midnight and heard a train horn in the distance, but the tracks ahead were empty, would you stay to listen, or would you run before it reached you? Boone High Bridge rises high above the Des Moines River. Its steel frame stretching across open air with quiet confidence. By day, it appears solid and unremarkable. A functional crossing suspended between wooded banks. Trains and maintenance crews once relied on it, trusting its structure without question. From a distance, it looks calm, even peaceful. Framed by sky and water below. As evening approaches, the bridge begins to change. The river darkens beneath it, reflecting less light as shadows gather along the banks. Wind moves differently at this height, steady but unpredictable, slipping through the steel supports with low, hollow tones. The bridge no longer feels like a passive structure. It feels attentive, as if aware of anyone who steps onto it. After sunset, visitors often notice the first sound. Footsteps echo softly on the wooden ties, measured and deliberate. At first, they seem to match the rhythm of Oni's own steps, easy to dismiss as reflection or imagination. But when movement stops, the footsteps do not. They continue for another step or two, always just behind. Those who turn around see nothing. The bridge stretches empty in both directions, rails fading into darkness. The footsteps cease the moment they are confronted, leaving only wind and the distant sound of water far below. When walking resumes, the sound often returns, maintaining a careful distance, never rushing, never falling behind. The longer someone stays on the bridge, the more intense the sensations become. The height begins to assert itself. The drop to the river feels steeper than before, the space beneath the ties wider and more open. The steel framework seems to vibrate faintly, not from trains or machinery, but from the constant pressure of wind and gravity. Then come the lights. Beneath the bridge, just beyond the reach of sight, lanterns appear. Their glow is soft and warm, swaying gently back and forth as if carried by invisible hands. They do not illuminate the river fully. Instead, they cast narrow circles of light that drift and overlap, moving slowly along the underside of the bridge. Visitors lean over the edge to look closer. The lanterns remain just out of reach, always a little farther away than expected. They do not rise or fall abruptly. They drift patiently, as if guiding attention downward rather than inviting approach. No source can be seen holding them. The lights simply exist, swaying in steady rhythm. Those who watch too long begin to feel disoriented. Vertigo sets in gradually, not as a sudden wave, but as a growing imbalance. The solid ground beneath the feet feels less certain. The ties seem narrower. The rails stretch farther apart. The body responds with shallow breaths and a tightening chest, warning of danger even when standing still. Some describe the sensation as being pulled. Not physically, but mentally. The bridge feels as if it is leaning inward, focusing attention on the open space below. The drop becomes the center of awareness. Thoughts narrow. Balance feels fragile, as if one misstep would be enough to tip everything forward. Those who attempt to leave quickly often feel resistance. Steps feel heavier. The bridge seems longer than before, each tie requiring more effort to cross. The footsteps behind them grow closer now, no longer matching pace, but pressing forward. The sound is still calm, but more insistent, as if urging continuation rather than escape. Only when reaching solid ground does the feeling release. The vertigo fades quickly. Breathing steadies. The lantern lights vanish without warning. The footsteps stop. Looking back, the bridge appears unchanged, silent and still, offering no sign of what just occurred. Stories about Boone High Bridge have circulated quietly for generations. Rail workers once spoke of uneasy nights spent crossing it alone, feeling watched despite empty tracks. Locals warned newcomers not to linger after dark. Some claimed the bridge demanded respect, punishing hesitation and rewarding decisiveness. The bridge has witnessed decades of movement. Trains crossed it regularly, carrying heavy loads across open air. Crews worked long hours maintaining its structure, often at night when traffic slowed. Over time, activity ceased. Trains stopped running. Inspections became rare. The bridge remained, holding on to the memory of weight, motion, and human presence. Some believe those impressions never left, replaying when conditions are right. Natural explanations are often offered. Wind can carry sound along steel structures, creating the illusion of footsteps. Lights from distant sources can reflect off water and metal, appearing closer than they are. Height alone can cause vertigo, especially in low light when depth perception falters. Yet these explanations do not fully satisfy those who experience the bridge after dark. The footsteps respond to movement. The lanterns appear only beneath the bridge and vanish completely when attention shifts. The vertigo feels directed, focused, as if the bridge itself is guiding sensation rather than triggering it accidentally. Some believe Boone High Bridge is not hostile, but aware. The sensations do not arrive suddenly. They build slowly, offering time to leave. Those who respect the warning rarely experience more than unease. Those who linger feel the full weight of the bridge's presence, as if it is testing resolve. By daylight, the bridge feels ordinary again. Sunlight reveals weathered wood and rusted steel. The river flows calmly below. Wind passes through without voice. The sun sets and shadows stretch across the span. Footsteps will follow without bodies. Lanterns will sway without hands. And for those who stay too long, the height will begin to whisper, bending perception and balance until the only thought left is movement forward or back. Boone High Bridge does not chase. It does not push. It waits. And in the quiet after dark, high above the Des Moines River, it reminds visitors that some structures remember every step ever taken across them. And sometimes, they want those steps to continue just a little farther than they should. The Kate Shelley High Bridge stretches across the Des Moines River Valley with a quiet strength that feels earned rather than imposed. By day, its steel frame cuts a precise line through open air, connecting distances with certainty. The land below rolls gently, and the wind moves freely along the span. From a distance, the bridge looks calm and dependable, a structure shaped by purpose and history. Stepping onto it brings a different awareness. There is a sense of weight here that has nothing to do with steel or height. The air feels heavier, as if the bridge carries something unseen along with its tracks. Even in daylight, visitors often slow their pace without knowing why, drawn into a quieter rhythm as the valley opens beneath them. At night, the atmosphere changes completely. Wind moves along the bridge in long, steady currents, slipping through beams and railings. The sound it makes is low and constant, never harsh, yet filled with subtle variation. Within that movement, voices seem to form. They do not call out clearly. They whisper, threading through the wind in fragments that feel deliberate. The warnings are never sharp. They arrive as gentle urgings, soft and indistinct, shaped more by tone than by words. Listeners describe the sensation of being cautioned, as if the bridge itself is reminding those who cross to be mindful, to proceed with care. The sound fades when attention is drawn to it directly, returning only when focus drifts. Some nights, a figure appears. It is seen along the rails, small and careful, moving with steady purpose. The shape resembles a young person walking with concentration, placing each step with intention. Those who see the figure feel a quiet stillness settle over them. The moment holds without fear or urgency. The figure continues forward, unbothered by wind or height, until it nears the end of the visible span. Then it fades gently, dissolving into air before reaching the far side. There is no sudden disappearance. The figure simply thins, as if becoming part of the night itself. The rails remain empty. The bridge returns to stillness, leaving behind a lingering sense of presence rather than shock. Many who cross the bridge experience an unexpected sadness. It arrives without warning, a heaviness in the chest that feels personal yet unexplained. Memories surface that do not belong to the moment. Emotions rise without clear cause. The feeling is not overwhelming, but it is persistent, as though the bridge invites reflection whether it is wanted or not. Some pause mid-crossing, uncertain why they feel compelled to stop. Looking out over the valley brings no immediate answers. The land below appears peaceful. The wind continues its steady movement. Yet the sadness remains, quiet and steady, like an echo carried from somewhere else. This emotional weight does not affect everyone the same way. Some feel it strongly, others barely notice it at all. Yet those who do are often surprised by how specific it feels, as if tied to a story they cannot fully remember. The sensation fades gradually after leaving the bridge, but it leaves a lasting impression. The bridge itself does nothing to demand attention. It does not creak or sway dramatically. Its structure remains firm and reliable. The experience comes from something layered into the place rather than imposed by it. The steel feels like a vessel, carrying memory as surely as it carries trains. Locals speak of the bridge with respect. They acknowledge its history and its role in connecting communities, but they also recognize the quiet presence that lingers there. It is not spoken of as something frightening. Instead, it is treated as something meaningful, deserving of awareness and care. The wind plays an important role. It moves differently along the span, changing tone as it passes through open space and narrow gaps. At times, it feels as though the bridge is breathing with it, exhaling sound into the night. Those who cross late at night often report a heightened sense of empathy. They think of others who stood here before them, of moments of courage and uncertainty that once passed along the same path. The sadness becomes less heavy when viewed this way, transforming into something reflective rather than painful. The young figure, when seen, never acknowledges onlookers. It remains focused on its careful path, guided by something internal rather than external. The sight inspires a quiet respect rather than fear, a reminder of resolve and purpose carried across time. By morning, the bridge feels lighter. Sunlight reveals clean lines and open space. The wind loses its whispering quality. The emotional weight recedes, leaving behind only the memory of how the place felt under different light. Visitors question their nighttime impressions, wondering how much came from imagination. Yet the feeling returns with darkness. The whispers resume. The sadness finds its way back into the crossing. The bridge seems to remember when it is time to do so. The Kate Shelley High Bridge remains a place of passage. It connects more than land. It carries memory, emotion, and quiet reminders of care and courage. Those who cross it do not always leave with clear explanations, but many leave changed in subtle ways. They remember the wind that seemed to speak. They remember the figure walking carefully along the rails. And they remember the sudden sadness that arrived without reason, a feeling that suggested the bridge holds more than steel and height. It holds echoes of determination, loss, and resolve. And when night falls, the bridge listens, whispering its reminders into the wind, waiting patiently for the next crossing. Cedar River Crossing stretches low and narrow over a slow bend in the water, its rails worn smooth by time and weather. By day, the bridge feels ordinary. Cars pass without pause. Footsteps echo briefly and fade. The river slides beneath with a soft, steady sound, reflecting sky and branches in broken patterns. After sunset, the crossing changes. The noise of the surrounding area drops away with surprising speed. Insects quiet. Wind softens. Even the river seems to lower its voice. The bridge enters a pocket of stillness that feels deliberate, as if sound itself is being held back. Those who step onto the rails notice the quiet first, the way it presses in rather than simply existing. Standing on the bridge after dark feels exposed. The river below becomes difficult to read. Its surface turns black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. The shallow areas near the banks disappear into shadow. Only the faint movement of water remains visible, marked by subtle shifts in darkness. Then the splashing begins. It comes from beneath the tracks, low and measured. Not the random splash of fish or falling debris, but the sound of something stepping carefully through shallow water. Each splash is followed by a pause, then another, spaced evenly as if guided by intent. Listening closely reveals direction. The splashing moves along the length of the bridge, following the current but not carried by it. The sound stays close to the underside of the rails, as though whatever causes it remains directly below the crossing. Those who peer over the edge sometimes see movement. Shadowy figures stand in the shallow water near the center of the river. They are dark against darker water, defined only by the absence of reflected light. Their shapes are human in outline, upright and still, feet submerged, heads tilted upward toward the bridge. They do not move when observed. The figures remain fixed in place, water flowing around their legs without disturbance. The quiet deepens in these moments. The splashing stops. The river resumes its soft movement. The bridge seems to hold its breath, waiting. Standing above the figures produces a strange awareness of height and distance, as if the space between bridge and water has grown thinner. Some visitors step back instinctively, breaking the line of sight. When they look again, the figures are gone. The river appears empty once more, its surface smooth and dark. The stillness lifts slightly, allowing distant sounds to return. Yet something remains unsettled, as if the absence itself is incomplete. The most unsettling detail appears afterward. Wet footprints form along the rails of the bridge, appearing where none existed moments before. They are clear and distinct, darker than the surrounding metal and wood. The prints face toward the center of the crossing, aligned neatly as if someone stood there, paused, and then vanished. The footprints do not trail off. They appear abruptly and end the same way, leaving no path to follow. Touching them reveals cool moisture that does not drip or spread. Within minutes, they fade, drying without leaving residue, as though the water never truly belonged to the bridge. Multiple visitors report similar experiences on different nights. The quiet always comes first. The splashing follows. The figures appear only briefly, always in shallow water, always looking upward. The footprints arrive last, silent evidence of contact where no contact should be possible. Local stories surrounding the crossing speak of the river as a place of passage. Long before the bridge existed, people crossed here on foot and by wagon, judging depth by memory and instinct. What was shallow one evening could be dangerous by morning. The river changed often, sometimes without warning. What was shallow one evening could be dangerous by morning. Yet the river remained, flowing beneath, unchanged in its rhythm. Some believe the figures seen below are echoes of those who once relied on the river itself to pass through. Their upward gaze is said to be fixed on the bridge, a structure that came too late for them. The footprints on the rails suggest attempts to reach a path no longer meant for walking. Others suggest the phenomenon is tied to the moment between movement and stillness. The bridge exists above the river but is not part of it. The figures remain below, unable to cross fully into the space above. They stand at the boundary, acknowledged only briefly before fading back into shadow and water. What makes Cedar River crossing unsettling is not threat, but attention. The figures do not chase. They do not approach. They watch. The footprints do not advance. They appear and disappear without explanation. The experience feels observational rather than aggressive, as if the crossing itself is being examined. Those who linger too long report a growing discomfort, not fear, but pressure. A sense that staying draws notice. The quiet thickens again, and the river seems to pause, waiting for a decision. Most choose to leave. Stepping off the bridge restores sound gradually. Insects resume their calls. Wind moves through trees. The river regains its familiar presence. Looking back shows nothing unusual, only a low bridge over dark water. By morning, no trace remains. The rails are dry. No footprints mark the crossing. The river flows as it always has, shallow and calm beneath the structure. Yet those who experienced the crossing after sunset remember it clearly. They recall the sudden quiet, the splashing beneath their feet, the figures standing motionless in the water. They remember the footprints that appeared without approach and vanished without retreat. Cedar River Crossing continues to serve its purpose by day, carrying traffic without pause. At night, it becomes something else. A place where sound falls away. Where shadows look upward from the water. Where the river reminds those above it that not every crossing is complete. And not every path truly replaces the one it was meant to leave behind. Rock Island Bridge stretches across dark, slow-moving water, its steel frame rising in long, rigid lines against the sky. Once, engines hummed across it day and night. Tires rolled. Voices echoed. Now the roadway lies empty, cracked and quiet, a wide span that feels larger without traffic to define it. The bridge still stands firm, but its purpose feels distant, like a memory that no longer fits the present. By day, the structure looks worn but harmless. Sunlight reveals rust along bolts and seams. The railing is cold to the touch. Wind passes freely through gaps where signs once hung. From the center, the water below appears calm, reflecting clouds and fragments of sky. As evening approaches, the bridge grows still. The surrounding land quiets. Distant sounds fade. Even the river seems to slow, its surface darkening into a long, moving shadow. When the last light drains from the horizon, the bridge becomes a corridor of silence suspended above the water. That is when the clanking begins. Metallic sounds echo along the span, sharp and hollow. A steady clank, then another, like heavy links shifting under weight. The noise carries easily, bouncing between beams and railing, impossible to trace to a single source. It does not follow a rhythm. It comes in bursts, sometimes loud enough to vibrate through the deck, sometimes barely audible. Visitors stop walking when they hear it. The sound feels close, as if something is moving along the underside of the bridge or within its framework. Yet no movement is visible. As eyes adjust to the darkness, shapes begin to appear. Figures lean against the railing, spaced irregularly along the edge. They stand quietly, bodies angled toward the water below. Their outlines are clear enough to recognize as human, yet details remain blurred. Faces are turned downward, hidden by shadow and mist rising from the river. Those who see them often hesitate. The figures do not move. They do not react to footsteps or voices. They simply watch the water, unmoving and patient. The sight creates an immediate tension, a sense that these watchers have been there longer than anyone else present. Approaching them feels wrong, yet curiosity pulls people forward. Each step toward the figures makes the air feel heavier. Breathing becomes shallow. The water below seems farther away, its surface deeper and darker than before. When the figures are only a few steps away, they change. They dissolve. Not abruptly, but gently, breaking apart into pale mist that drifts upward and outward. The outlines blur, stretch, and thin until nothing remains but cool air and faint vapor. The space where they stood is suddenly empty, leaving the observer alone with the sound of water and metal. The mist does not linger long. It disperses quickly, carried away by the night breeze. No footprints remain. No warmth or residue marks the place. The bridge looks unchanged, as though nothing stood there at all. Moments later, the clanking resonates. Visitors turn, scanning the railing, and see new figures leaning over the edge farther down the span. The pattern repeats. Watching. Approaching. Dissolving. Always silent. Always focused on the water below. Some report feeling watched even when no figures are visible. A pressure between the shoulders. The sense of eyes at their back. When they turn, the bridge is empty, yet the feeling does not fade immediately. Others feel drawn toward the railing themselves. The water seems to call attention downward, reflecting faint shapes that ripple and vanish before taking form. The clanking intensifies near these moments. Metal rings sharply, echoing through the framework, as if responding to the shift in focus. The bridge feels active, alert to movement and hesitation alike. Those who linger too long often feel weak. Legs grow heavy. Balance falters. The night air feels thick, pressing inward. Some sit down briefly, overcome by fatigue. Others leave quickly, heart racing. Unwilling to test how long the sensation might last. By early morning, the bridge returns to stillness. Sunlight reveals an empty span. No mist rises from the railing. The clanking is gone. The water below reflects only sky and structure. In daylight, the stories sound exaggerated. Stripped of the weight they carry at night. Locals speak quietly about Rock Island Bridge. They say the structure remembers its busiest hours. That the metal holds echoes of movement and waiting. Some believe the figures are not visitors, but reflections of attention drawn downward again and again, replaying a moment of focus without release. Animals avoid the bridge at night. Birds roost elsewhere. Insects thin out along the railings. The surrounding land feels unusually quiet, as if respecting an unspoken boundary. Those who cross the bridge after dark often leave with the same impression. The bridge is not empty. It is simply waiting. Waiting for footsteps. Waiting for attention. Waiting for someone to notice the water below and pause just long enough to feel the weight of the night settle in. The Rock Island Bridge remains suspended between land and river, between movement and stillness. At night, the metal clanks. Figures appear and vanish. The water reflects more than light. And those who stand there long enough understand why the bridge feels abandoned, even when it is not. Some places never truly empty. They only quiet themselves. And wait. The Des Moines River iron span stretches across dark water and open land, a long steel crossing that hums faintly even when no trains pass. By day, it looks solid and practical, its iron framework etched against the sky. At night, that calm dissolves. Even on evenings when the air is still elsewhere, cold wind rushes across the span. It comes without warning, cutting sharply from one side to the other, pressing against the body with surprising force. Visitors often stop midway, confused by the sudden change, feeling the temperature drop as if they have stepped into a different season. The wind has direction here. It funnels along the tracks and beams, accelerating as it reaches the center of the bridge. Coats snap. Breath turns thin. The sound of the river below fades beneath the rush of air, leaving only the metallic sigh of the structure itself. As people linger, voices begin to surface. They arrive faintly at first, carried within the wind rather than above it. Two or more voices overlap, raised in tension. The words are indistinct, blurred by distance and motion, but the tone is unmistakable. Disagreement. Urgency. Frustration that never resolves. The voices seem to come from the center of the bridge. They hover there, drifting back and forth along the tracks, never settling into a clear position. When visitors move closer, the arguments do not grow louder. When they step back, the sound does not fade. It remains constant, suspended in the same space regardless of distance. Those who stop to listen often feel a tightening in the chest. The air grows heavy, thickening with each breath. Inhaling feels shallow, as though the lungs cannot fully expand. The sensation is subtle at first, easy to dismiss as cold or anxiety, but it intensifies the longer one remains near the center. Visitors instinctively place a hand on the railing or beam for balance. The iron feels colder than expected, biting through gloves. Vibrations run through the metal, not strong enough to rattle, but steady enough to be felt in the palms. The bridge seems awake, responding to weight and presence. Beneath the tracks, flashes of movement appear. They are quick and peripheral, visible only at the edge of vision. A shape passes beneath a beam. A shadow darts between supports. When visitors look directly down, the river flows quietly, unbroken and dark. Nothing moves on the surface. The flashes return only when attention drifts. These movements never rise fully into view. They remain below, just out of reach, as if bound to the underside of the span. Some describe the impression of figures pacing beneath the tracks, matching the arguments above with restless motion below. Others see only brief distortions in shadow, too fast to define. The bridge feels longest at night. Crossing takes more time than expected. Steps feel heavier. Progress slows. The center seems farther away than it should be. And once reached, it is difficult to leave. The wind presses inward from both sides, holding visitors in place with invisible force. The voices grow more intense near this point. Though still indistinct, their emotion sharpens. The argument feels unresolved, looping back on itself. No conclusion is reached. No silence follows. The tension simply hangs in the air, repeating without progress. Those who attempt to speak over the voices often find their own words swallowed by the wind. Sound does not carry here. It is absorbed, flattened, leaving speech feeling futile. Some report that their breathing becomes the loudest sound they can hear, each inhale labored, each exhale rushed. The sensation of pressure builds. It is not pain, but weight, as if the air itself is pressing downward. Shoulders slump. Posture changes unconsciously. The urge to sit or lean grows strong, despite the cold and exposure. Most choose to leave before reaching that point. Turning away brings immediate relief. The wind weakens. The voices fade rapidly, dissolving into the rush of air. Breathing deepens. The heaviness lifts, leaving only a lingering chill and the memory of tension. Those who linger too long often describe disorientation afterward. Time feels uncertain. The length of the visit is difficult to recall. The argument echoes faintly in memory, though no words can be repeated. The sensation of being caught between opposing forces lingers long after the bridge is behind them. Local accounts frame the iron span as a place of division. The bridge has long served as a crossing between boundaries, not just of land, but of responsibility and decision. Stories speak of disagreements that unfolded here under pressure, moments when choices carried weight and consequences felt immediate. When the air grows heavy, it is because the balance has tipped, and the structure struggles to shed what it holds. The flashes beneath the tracks are described as the underside of that struggle, motion without direction, energy that cannot surface. Despite its unsettling nature, the bridge is not considered dangerous by those who know it well. It does not collapse. It does not trap. It warns through sensation rather than force. Those who listen to their bodies and leave when the air grows heavy experience no harm. By day, the Des Moines River iron span returns to stillness. Wind behaves normally. The river reflects the sky. The iron beams cast ordinary shadows. Nothing hints at the pressure and voices that come with night. Yet for those who have crossed after dark, the memory remains vivid. They remember the sudden cold. The arguing voices without words. The flashes of movement just out of sight. And most of all, they remember the weight of the air, the way breathing became difficult, as if the bridge itself was holding something unresolved. The iron span continues to stand, bridging land and water, carrying traffic and time. But when night falls and the wind begins to rush where it should not, the bridge remembers its tension. Voices rise. Shadows move. And the air grows heavy once more, reminding anyone who steps onto the span that some crossings carry more than weight. And some arguments never truly end. Big Sioux River Bridge stretches across dark water far from the glow of town lights. By day, it feels isolated but ordinary, a long span of steel and timber connecting quiet banks. Fields roll away on either side, and the river moves steadily beneath, reflecting clouds and sky. Nothing about the bridge suggests danger or mystery while the sun is high. When night comes, the distance from civilization becomes unmistakable. There are no street lamps nearby, no passing traffic, no steady hum of human presence. Darkness settles quickly, thick and uninterrupted. The bridge stands alone in this quiet, exposed to wind and silence. Visitors often describe the first sensation as awareness. Every sound feels sharper. Footsteps on the planks echo longer than expected. Wind moving through the railings produces low tones that seem to follow rather than pass. Standing still, it feels as if the bridge is listening, registering movement and stillness with equal attention. Then the lanterns appear. They hover above the rails, glowing softly in the darkness. The light is warm and steady, not flickering like flame. One lantern may appear first. The lanterns do not illuminate the bridge fully. They cast narrow circles of light that slide across wood and steel, revealing just enough detail to encourage movement. The glow feels intentional, guiding rather than warning. Those who notice the lanterns often begin walking without realizing it. The lights move at a comfortable pace, neither rushing nor slowing. Following them feels natural, almost necessary, as if standing still would break some unspoken rule. The lanterns remain just ahead, always within sight but never close enough to touch. As people follow, time begins to loosen. Minutes feel indistinct. Steps blur together. The sound of the river fades in and out, sometimes loud, sometimes distant, without clear reason. Thoughts grow quieter, replaced by focus on the light ahead and the rhythm of walking. The bridge seems longer than before. Sections that should pass quickly stretch out, repeating in subtle ways. Rails look familiar, then unfamiliar again. Looking back offers little clarity. Darkness erases distance, making it impossible to judge how far one has come or how much remains. Some describe feeling watched from below. Not by eyes, but by attention. The river feels aware, as if tracking movement above it. The lanterns drift onward, unbothered, there is no sense of threat, only the growing impression of being removed from normal time. Eventually, the lanterns fade. They do not vanish suddenly. Their light softens, thinning like mist until it blends with darkness. When the last glow disappears, the bridge feels empty and immense. This is when confusion sets in. People stop walking, unsure of where they are. The bridge looks the same in both directions. Familiar landmarks are gone. The river below feels closer or farther without clear reason. Checking the time reveals hours have passed, far more than expected. Those who return often do so without clear memory. They find themselves back on solid ground, sometimes on the opposite side of the bridge from where they started. Shoes are dusty. Clothing is cool with night air. But the stretch of time spent following the lanterns feels missing, replaced by fragments rather than a continuous experience. Friends and family describe these returns as unsettling. People seem disoriented but unharmed. They struggle to explain where they were or what they were doing. The memory of the lanterns remains vivid. But the path taken feels erased. Stories of the Big Sioux River Bridge lanterns have circulated quietly for years. Older residents recall warnings passed down, advising travelers not to cross the bridge after dark. Some say the lights are meant to guide lost souls. Others believe they are echoes of past maintenance crews. The bridge has seen decades of labor. Workers once walked its length in darkness, checking bolts and beams by lantern light. Their routines were repetitive and focused, step after step above the river. Over time, those movements may have become part of the bridge itself, embedded in its structure and memory. Natural explanations are often suggested. Reflections can form above water, appearing to float. Distant lights can seem closer in open darkness. Fatigue and isolation can distort time perception, especially when combined with steady walking and minimal visual reference. Over time, those movements may have become part of the bridge itself, embedded in its structure and memory. Yet those who follow the lanterns insist the experience feels guided rather than accidental. The lights respond to movement. They maintain distance. They vanish only after attention has been fully claimed. The loss of time feels deliberate, contained within the span of the bridge itself. Some believe the bridge exists slightly outside ordinary flow. Far from town lights, far from routine. It becomes a place where time can slip. The lanterns act as markers, pulling attention away from clocks and directions, allowing hours to pass unnoticed. By morning, Big Sioux River Bridge looks unchanged. Sunlight reveals weathered boards and rusted steel. The river flows calmly beneath. The distance to town feels normal again. Standing on the bridge in daylight, it is difficult to imagine the pull of the lanterns or the way time can dissolve. But when night returns and darkness settles fully, the bridge waits. Lanterns will rise softly above the rails. The river will darken below. And for those who follow the glow too far from the world they know, time will loosen its grip once more. Big Sioux River Bridge does not trap or harm. It simply leads. And sometimes, it leads people somewhere they cannot quite remember, returning them hours later with the quiet certainty that something meaningful happened in the darkness, even if the details have slipped away with the light. Skunk River Bridge stretches across slow-moving water and dark banks, its wooden ties laid out in long, uneven lines that remember every footstep. By day, the bridge looks simple and worn, shaped by weather and years of use. The river beneath reflects sky and trees, offering little reason for concern. It is only after nightfall that the bridge reveals a different character. As darkness settles, the temperature drops quickly along the river. The air grows still, and sound carries farther than it should. Each step onto the bridge produces a deep creak, wood answering weight with age and strain. The noise feels louder at night, echoing down the length of the span and returning in softened waves. Sometimes it responds exactly to movement. Other times, the sound continues after footsteps stop, stretching on for an extra moment as if the bridge is finishing a thought of its own. Visitors pause, listening, unsure whether the noise belongs to the structure or something else sharing the space. Then there is the sound beneath. From below the ties comes a slow, deliberate rhythm. It resembles footsteps moving along the underside of the bridge, pacing in time with those above. The sound below stops as well. Silence follows, thick and expectant. The river continues its gentle movement, but the footsteps vanish completely. Those standing on the bridge often hold their breath, listening closely for any hint of motion. The quiet feels intentional, as though something is waiting. When walking resumes, the sound returns. The steps beneath mirror the pace above, staying directly below, close enough to feel. The space between deck and water feels thinner, less reliable. The bridge no longer feels empty. Wind moves along the railings, brushing against hands and sleeves. The wood feels cold to the touch, holding moisture from the river air. It is along these rails that something else appears. A faint shape forms on the surface, pale against the darker grain. A handprint emerges slowly, fingers splayed naturally, palm pressed flat. The print looks fresh. It appears as if formed from condensation or pressure rather than dirt or paint. The edges are soft at first, then sharpen slightly, becoming unmistakable. Visitors stare, drawn by the sudden proof of contact where no one stands. Within moments, the handprint fades. It thins into nothing, leaving the rail exactly as it was before. No residue remains. No moisture drips. The wood shows no sign of disturbance. The brief appearance feels deliberate, shown just long enough to be noticed, then withdrawn. This is often when unease sets in fully. The combination of sound below, movement above, and fleeting touch creates a sense of being surrounded. The bridge feels aware of those crossing it, responding to presence rather than passively supporting it. Some attempt to hurry across. Their steps quicken, but the bridge does not allow escape from awareness. The creaking grows louder. The footsteps below keep pace, matching speed without effort. The river beneath reflects distorted shapes. Ripples stretching into long shadows that shift with movement. Others slow down, hoping stillness will bring clarity. Stopping brings silence again, but the silence feels charged rather than calming. The bridge never shakes or sways dramatically. Its structure remains solid, doing exactly what it was built to do. This reliability makes the experience more unsettling. Nothing is visibly wrong. Nothing appears broken. The sensations arrive without mechanical cause, rooted instead in perception and proximity. Those who look down into the river see little. Water moves slowly, reflecting fragments of sky and tree line. Occasionally, ripples form without clear origin, spreading outward in soft circles before disappearing. The underside of the bridge remains hidden in shadow, offering no explanation for the sounds that come from there. Crossing the bridge becomes an emotional experience as much as a physical one. Visitors report feeling shaken without knowing why. The feeling is not fear alone, but a deeper awareness of vulnerability. The sense of being observed lingers, following each step, measuring distance and time. By the time the far end is reached, relief arrives suddenly. Stepping onto solid ground brings warmth back into the body. The air feels lighter. Looking back, the bridge appears unchanged, quiet and still, its surface empty and unmarked. Yet the feeling does not leave immediately. Many who cross at night report glancing over their shoulders long after they have stepped away. The sense of being watched follows them into open ground, fading only gradually as distance grows. Locals speak of the bridge with caution. The bridge with caution. Many who cross at night report glancing over their shoulders long after they have stepped away. The sense of being watched follows them into open ground, fading only gradually as distance grows. Locals speak of the bridge with caution. They acknowledge its age and the way sound carries along the river at night. They also recognize that some places develop a presence shaped by years of passage, memory, and repetition. The bridge has felt countless steps, held countless hands, and listened to countless moments of hesitation. The handprints are rarely seen twice in the same place. They appear and vanish without pattern, as if marking attention rather than territory. The footsteps beneath never emerge onto the surface, remaining below, close but unreachable. The bridge does not threaten those who cross it. It observes them. It listens to movement and responds with sound. It acknowledges presence through fleeting signs. The experience leaves visitors unsettled not because of danger, but because of recognition. Skunk River Bridge continues to stand where it always has, carrying weight across dark water. By day, it is nothing more than a crossing. By night, it becomes something else, a place where sound, touch, and awareness converge. Those who walk it after dark often leave with the same impression. They felt watched. They felt followed. And long. After the river and bridge are out of sight, the memory of creaking wood, unseen footsteps, and a fading handprint remains. Quiet but persistent. Reminding them that some crossings do not end the moment you step off the other side. Turkey River Crossing lies on a quiet stretch of road where the land lowers gently toward the water. By day, the bridge feels unremarkable. Wooden rails line its sides, worn smooth by years of passing vehicles and footsteps. The river beneath flows calmly, shallow in places, reflecting trees and sky without effort. Nothing about the crossing suggests unease while sunlight remains. After sunset, the bridge becomes something else. Fog gathers quickly over the river, thickening as night settles. It rises from the water in slow waves, spilling across the surface and climbing toward the bridge deck. Within minutes, the far end of the crossing fades from view, swallowed by a pale wall that drifts and reshapes itself without sound. The air grows colder as the fog deepens. Sound behaves differently here. Distant noises fade until only the Rivera's faint movement remains. Footsteps on the bridge seem louder than they should, echoing softly before dissolving into the mist. The crossing feels longer at night, stretched by limited visibility and silence. It is within this fog that figures appear. Visitors often notice them at the far end of the bridge, standing just where the structure meets the road beyond. They appear as dark shapes against the pale mist, upright and still. Their outlines are human, though details are blurred by distance and fog. They do not wave or shift. They simply stand, facing the crossing. At first, many assume the figures are other travelers waiting to cross. Calling out brings no response. The fog absorbs sound quickly, dulling voices before they reach the far end. The figures remain motionless, unaffected by attention or noise. As visitors move closer, something changes. Each step forward causes the figures to lose definition. Their shapes that once seemed solid begin to thin, as if made from the same substance as the mist itself. By the time the midpoint of the bridge is reached, the figures dissolve completely. They do not retreat or turn away. They simply fade, leaving only drifting fog where they once stood. The far end of the bridge remains empty, quiet, and indistinct. What follows is always physical. Those who continue crossing alone report a sudden chill that settles into the body without warning. The temperature drop feels localized, centered on the bridge rather than the surrounding air. It presses against the skin and seeps into clothing, lingering even when movement continues. The chill does not resemble ordinary cold. It arrives sharply, like stepping into deep shade after standing in sunlight. Breath becomes visible for a moment, even on nights when the air should remain mild. Arms and shoulders tense involuntarily. Some describe the sensation as being passed through rather than simply surrounded. The feeling follows the remainder of the crossing. Reaching the far end does not bring immediate relief. The chill clings for several steps beyond the bridge, slowly fading only after the fog thins and the river slips out of sight. Those who turn back often find the bridge empty, its length fully visible again, as if nothing had happened. The experience repeats under similar conditions. Fog gathers. Figures appear. They remain still. Approaching causes them to dissolve. Chills follow anyone who crosses alone. The pattern does not vary with season or weather beyond the presence of fog. Local accounts describe the crossing as a place of waiting. Long before modern roads, this section of the river served as a point of pause. Travelers often stopped here, waiting for fog to lift or water levels to change. Crossing alone at night was avoided whenever possible, not due to danger, but due to uncertainty. Some believe the figures represent that hesitation. They stand at the far end as reminders of pause, marking the boundary between one side and the other. Their stillness reflects the moment of decision that once defined the crossing, when travelers weighed risk against necessity. The river releases mist as temperatures drop, carrying with it impressions of movement and presence. The figures may be nothing more than shapes formed by expectation and environment, yet their consistency troubles those who witness them. What makes Turkey River crossing unsettling is its restraint. Nothing ever follows. Nothing reaches out. The figures never advance. The crossing feels observed rather than challenged. Those who cross in groups report fewer effects. Figures still appear, but the chill weakens or fails to arrive at all. Conversation seems to thin the fog, breaking its hold on the bridge. Sound returns more quickly. The crossing feels shorter, more ordinary. It is solitude that sharpens the experience. Standing alone on the bridge within thick fog creates a sense of separation from the world beyond. The figures at the far end feel closer, more focused. The chill arrives faster, settling deeper, as if acknowledging the lack of witnesses. By morning, the bridge returns to normal. Fog lifts completely. The river reflects sunlight again. No sign remains of the figures or the cold. They remember the quiet, the figures standing without movement, the way they dissolved as distance closed. They remember the sudden cold that followed, distinct and personal. The memory lingers longer than expected, resurfacing when fog gathers elsewhere or when crossing another bridge alone. Turkey River crossing continues to serve its purpose, connecting one side of the river to the other without interruption. Most who pass over it never encounter the fog, never see the figures, never feel the chill. Where approach causes disappearance rather than retreat. Where crossing alone leaves a mark not on the ground, but on the body itself. The figures never stop anyone from crossing. They only stand, dissolve, and allow the river and fog to remind travelers that some passages are felt more than seen, and some journeys leave no trace except the cold that follows close behind. By day, the bridge appears unremarkable, a practical crossing framed by trees and open sky. Vehicles pass without pause. The river flows calmly beneath, reflecting clouds and branches in slow motion. After dark, the bridge becomes something else. As the last light fades, the air grows cooler and heavier. Sound carries differently, drifting farther than it should. The river below darkens into a wide ribbon of shadow, absorbing reflections rather than returning them. When traffic thins and the surroundings fall quiet, the bridge feels exposed, suspended between banks with nothing to anchor the senses. It is then that the vibrations begin. At first, they are subtle. A faint tremor beneath the feet, barely enough to notice. Many mistake it for wind or distant movement along the roadway. But the vibration does not pass. It settles into the structure, steady and low, as if the bridge itself has begun to hum. The vibration travels upward through legs and into the chest, creating a strange awareness of balance and weight. There is no visible cause. No vehicles approach. No wind gusts press against the structure. The river remains calm. Yet the vibration continues, building slowly in strength before easing back, only to return moments later. Then comes the sound. A distant train horn echoes across the water. It is faint but unmistakable, a long, hollow call carried through the night air. The sound arrives from far away, stretched thin by distance. Visitors turn instinctively, scanning the horizon for tracks or lights that might explain it. There are none. No rail lines cross the bridge. No trains pass nearby. The surrounding land remains still, unbroken by motion or light. Yet the horn sounds again, slightly closer this time, echoing softly between the bridge supports and the riverbank. The vibration deepens. The ground beneath visitors' feet begins to shake more noticeably, as though something heavy is approaching at speed. The sensation is familiar, almost expected, like standing near tracks as a train passes. The body prepares for impact that never arrives. Some grip the railing, bracing themselves. The shaking feels real, solid, undeniable. The bridge responds with quiet groans and metallic murmurs, subtle movements that suggest immense weight pressing down from somewhere beyond sight. The train horn echoes once more. This time it feels closer, louder, resonating in the chest rather than the ears. The sound does not rush. It holds steady, then fades gradually, leaving behind a silence that feels incomplete, as if something has been interrupted mid-approach. Visitors often describe a moment of confusion here. The senses insist that a train is near. The body reacts accordingly. Muscles tense. Breathing changes. Yet the eyes confirm nothing is there. The roadway remains empty. The night holds its breath. As the sound fades, the vibration lingers. It does not stop immediately. Instead, it diminishes slowly, as though the weight is passing by rather than arriving. The shaking softens, then returns briefly, weaker than before finally settling into stillness. Those who remain often experience the cycle again. The vibration resonates without warning. The horn echoes faintly from a slightly different direction. The ground trembles beneath them, steady and convincing. Some visitors feel drawn to the center of the bridge. The vibration seems strongest there, focused and deliberate. Standing at that point creates a strange sensation of alignment, as if the bridge and the body are briefly moving in sync. Others feel the opposite, an urgent need to move away, to put distance between themselves and the source of the motion. Fatigue sets in for those who linger. Legs feel heavy. Balance wavers slightly. The night air presses inward, making the bridge feel longer than it should be. Even short walks back toward either end seem to take more time than expected. The structure responds to an absence it has not forgotten. The river plays a role. That water carries sound and pressure in ways that bend perception. That certain nights align conditions just right for echoes to return without a source. Still, no explanation fully accounts for the physical shaking felt beneath steady feet. Animals avoid the bridge after dark. Birds do not roost along its railings. Insects thin out quickly once the vibration begins. Even the surrounding woods grow quiet, as if listening rather than living. By morning, Maquoketa River Bridge returns to normal. The surface feels solid. No vibration remains. The air is clear. Sunlight reveals nothing unusual in the structure. Daytime visitors cross without incident, unaware of what occurs after dark. Those who experience the night phenomenon often carry it with them. They feel phantom vibrations while standing still. They hear distant horns in quiet places, fading before they can be placed. The memory lingers, not as fear, but as unresolved expectation. The bridge continues to stand, connecting two banks that have changed over time. At night, it vibrates. Train horns echo faintly. The ground shakes beneath waiting feet. And yet no trains ever come. The sound fades. The vibration settles. The bridge remains suspended in that moment, repeating a passage that never arrives, holding the weight of something that once moved through it and never truly left. Maquoketa River Bridge waits each night, listening for what it remembers, and responding as if the past is still approaching. The Nishnabotna River Rail Bridge stretches across slow-moving water and open land, its steel frame rising above the river like a narrow spine. By day, the bridge looks functional and worn, carrying tracks that cut a straight line through the landscape. The river below moves quietly, reflecting sky, grass, and the underside of the span without drawing attention to itself. It is at dusk that the first unease begins. As light softens and shadows lengthen, the surface of the water changes character. Reflections sharpen, growing darker and more precise. Ripples fade more quickly than expected, leaving the river unnaturally smooth beneath the bridge. Visitors who pause along the tracks often feel compelled to look down, drawn by the clarity of the reflection. At first, everything appears normal. The bridge reflects itself. The rails form straight lines across the water. The sky mirrors faintly, broken by drifting clouds. But then extra shapes appear. Blurred at first, then clearer. Forms that do not correspond to anything above. Figures stand in the reflection. Their outlines are human, but indistinct, softened by water and shadow. They do not move quickly. They simply remain, as if waiting. When visitors turn around, the bridge is empty. No footsteps sound. No voices carry across the span. The air remains still. Looking back down into the water reveals the reflection again, unchanged, the figures still present, still positioned too close for comfort. The effect is deeply disorienting. The mind struggles to reconcile what the eyes see with what the body knows. Reflections are supposed to follow rules. They are meant to mirror reality, not invent it. Yet here, the water seems to show something else entirely, something that exists only when observed indirectly. Those who continue to stare report physical sensations soon after. Dizziness sets in slowly, like standing up too fast after sitting too long. Vision narrows slightly at the edges. Legs feel lighter, less reliable. The bridge seems longer, stretching away on both sides. The river below feels deeper than it appears. Weakness follows. Arms grow heavy. Balance becomes uncertain. Some visitors grip the railing or drop to one knee, overwhelmed by the sensation that the ground is shifting beneath them. Breathing grows shallow, not from panic, but from effort, as though the air itself has thinned. Looking away brings relief. Breaking focus from the water causes the dizziness to fade gradually. Strength returns. The reflection loses its clarity, ripples reappearing as if on cue. The figures dissolve into ordinary shadow, leaving only the bridge and river behind. Those who resist the urge to look back often recover fully within minutes. Others are not so quick to turn away. Some feel compelled to confirm what they saw, to prove it was imagination or fatigue. They look down again, locking their gaze onto the surface. Each time, the effect intensifies. The figures seem closer in the reflection, their outlines more defined. The sensation of weakness deepens, urging stillness rather than movement. Time becomes difficult to judge. Minutes stretch into something longer. The sound of the river fades. The world narrows to water and reflection. Visitors describe the sense of being watched. Local stories offer careful warnings. The Nishnabotna River, they say, has always been a mirror. The bridge, built to cross rather than linger, interrupts that memory. Looking too long allows the river to show. Some believe the figures are echoes. Moments replayed from different times, layered into the water and revealed only when light and stillness align. Others believe the reflection is not showing what is behind the viewer, but what is near, unseen, occupying the same space in a way that cannot be perceived directly. The dizziness, according to these accounts, is a warning. The body reacts before the mind understands, signaling that attention has crossed a boundary. Weakness encourages retreat, urging observers to step away before curiosity overrides instinct. The bridge itself remains passive throughout. It does not shake. It does not produce sound. Trains pass without incident during the day, unaware of what appears below after dark. The structure carries weight and motion without acknowledging the strange behavior of the water beneath it. Those who leave the bridge often carry lingering effects. For hours afterward, reflections in windows or puddles feel unsettling. Some avoid mirrors briefly, unsettled by the idea that surfaces might reveal more than expected. Fatigue sets in earlier than usual, as though energy was drained during the encounter. The experience does not repeat every night. Some visits pass without incident. The river reflects only sky and steel. Others produce the same results with uncanny consistency. There is no clear pattern tied to weather, season, or time. Those who glance briefly and move on report nothing unusual. Those who stare, who linger, who try to understand what they are seeing, are the ones affected most strongly. By daylight, the Nishnabotna River rail bridge offers no sign of its nocturnal behavior. The water ripples normally. Reflections break and reform as expected. The bridge stands empty and still. Nothing suggests the presence of figures or weakness or distortion. Yet those who have stood there after dark remember clearly. They remember the moment the reflection stopped obeying rules. The shock of seeing shapes where none should be. The dizziness that followed. The instinctive understanding that the river was showing something not meant to be examined for long. The bridge continues to span the Nishnabotna River, connecting one side to the other without pause. But when night falls and the water grows smooth, the river waits patiently, ready to reflect not just what stands above it, but what lingers unseen, reminding anyone who looks too closely that some surfaces are not meant to be trusted, and some reflections are best left unexamined. Wapsipinicon River Bridge stretches across slow-moving water and wide banks, linking quiet roads that see little traffic after sunset. During the day, it feels unremarkable, a simple structure carrying vehicles and footsteps over the Rivera's steady flow. The surroundings are open and calm, with trees lining the banks and fields extending into the distance. Nothing about the bridge seems unusual at first glance. Even in daylight, a faint humming hangs in the air. It is low and constant, not loud enough to demand attention, but impossible to ignore once noticed. The sound does not seem to come from the river or the wind. It feels embedded in the space itself, vibrating gently through the bridge's structure. As evening approaches, the humming grows more pronounced. The river darkens beneath the bridge, reflecting less of the sky as shadows gather. The air cools, and ordinary sounds fade. Birds retreat into silence. Insects quiet sooner than expected. What remains is the hum, steady and patient, filling the space where other noise should be. After sunset, the bridge feels different. The humming deepens slightly, gaining texture. It begins to pulse rather than remain flat, rising and falling in subtle waves. Visitors walking onto the bridge often slow their pace without realizing why, drawn into the rhythm of the sound beneath their feet. Then the voices begin. At first, they are barely audible, blending with the hum. Soft tones drift through the air, gentle and distant. The sound resembles singing, but without clear words. It carries a melody that feels familiar, though impossible to place. The voices never rise suddenly. They ease into awareness, inviting attention rather than demanding it. Those who stop to listen often feel a strange calm. The singing does not feel threatening. It soothes rather than startles. The melody flows slowly, layered and overlapping, as if multiple voices are singing together at different distances. The river below seems to move in time with the sound, its surface shifting gently in response. As people walk farther onto the bridge, the sound grows clearer. Near the center, the humming and singing merge into a fuller presence. The melody becomes richer, filling the space around the listener. The bridge itself seems to carry the sound upward, amplifying it through beams and rails. Visitors describe a sensation of being surrounded. The voices do not come from one direction. They rise from below, drift along the rails, and hover just behind the shoulders. Turning does not change their position. The sound remains balanced, centered, as if the bridge itself is the source. Some report a sudden physical sensation. A light touch brushes past an arm. Fingers graze a sleeve. The contact is brief and gentle, lasting only a moment. It does not grip or pull. It feels more like passing by someone in a narrow space, close enough to feel their presence without seeing them. When people look around, no one is there. The bridge remains empty. The river flows quietly below. The singing continues, unchanged, as if nothing unusual has occurred. For some, the touch repeats, always light, always fleeting, never strong enough to leave a mark. Those who linger near the center of the bridge often feel disoriented. Time stretches. The hum seems to slow breathing, matching it, guiding it. Thoughts grow quieter. The outside world feels distant, as if separated by more than physical space. The singing fills awareness, making it difficult to focus on anything else. Some describe the sensation as being welcomed. Not invited forward, but accepted where they stand. The bridge feels occupied, not crowded, but shared. The touches feel intentional yet impersonal, as if acknowledging presence rather than seeking interaction. The experience rarely escalates. Those who remain calm and continue walking usually find the sounds fade gradually as they move away from the center. The singing softens, thinning into the background hum. The humming itself lessens near the ends of the bridge, returning to the faint vibration felt earlier. Once back on solid ground, the sensations stop completely. The air feels normal again. Sounds return. The river resumes its quiet flow without accompaniment. Looking back at the bridge reveals nothing unusual. It stands as it always has, silent and still. Stories about Wapsipinicon River Bridge have been shared quietly for decades. Some say the bridge was built over a stretch of river long associated with gatherings and music. Others believe the humming is caused by subtle vibrations within the structure, amplified by temperature changes and wind patterns. Bridges can produce low-frequency vibrations that create humming sounds. Metal and concrete can carry resonance in unexpected ways. Light touches may come from shifting air currents or nerves heightened by focus and suggestion. Yet these explanations do not fully account for the consistency. The sound grows strongest at the same point every time. The singing follows the same gentle patterns. The touches occur only near the center, always brief and always calm. The experience feels coordinated rather than random. Some believe the bridge remembers. Over time, countless footsteps crossed it, carrying conversations, songs, and quiet moments. The structure absorbed vibration and movement, storing more than just physical stress. When conditions are right, those impressions return as sound and sensation, replayed softly into the night. Others believe the river plays a role. The Wapsipinicon flows steadily beneath, shaping the land and carrying echoes along its surface. Sound travels differently over water, bending and layering in ways that confuse direction and distance. Combined with the Bridge's structure, it creates an environment where perception shifts easily. By day, none of this is obvious. Sunlight washes the bridge clean of mystery. The humming fades into background noise. The river looks ordinary. Standing at the center brings no singing, no touch, no sense of presence. But when night returns and the world grows quiet, the bridge changes again. The hum rises softly. Voices begin to sing without words. The air grows close and attentive. And for those who walk slowly across Wapsipinicon River Bridge after dark, there is the unmistakable feeling that they are not crossing alone, but sharing the span with something gentle, unseen, and always listening. Shell Rock River crossing stretches over dark water and quiet banks, a practical span built to move people from one side to the other without ceremony. By day, it feels ordinary. The river flows steadily beneath, reflecting sky and trees in slow motion. Traffic passes without pause. Nothing about the place suggests that it holds anything beyond routine movement. Night changes that impression. As darkness settles, the bridge takes on a different presence. The air grows heavier, carrying a faint smell that does not belong to the river alone. It is a mix of oil and smoke, subtle but unmistakable, drifting across the crossing in thin waves. Visitors notice it almost immediately. The smell triggers a sense of alertness, a feeling that something nearby is active, working, or burning just out of sight. Sound arrives next. From somewhere along the span, coughing echoes softly, uneven and strained. The sound rises, falters, then returns, as if someone nearby is struggling to breathe. The cough carries urgency rather than illness, sharp and hurried, filled with effort. Footsteps follow. They strike the surface of the bridge quickly, moving with purpose. The pace suggests haste, not wandering. The steps do not always align with visible movement. At times they sound close, then suddenly farther away. Racing from one end of the crossing to the other without a clear source. The sound does not depend on company. It moves independently, tracing paths that feel familiar yet unseen. The urgency in the steps creates tension, drawing attention forward. Urging motion even when stillness would feel safer. Shadows appear along the rails. They stretch and contract rapidly, slipping across the wooden ties and metal supports. They do not match the movement of passing cars or shifting light. They behave as if driven by the same haste that fills the air. The shadows never settle. They race, pause briefly, then race again, repeating patterns that suggest escape or pursuit. Visitors track them instinctively, turning their heads, trying to anticipate where they will appear next. The effort brings no clarity, only deeper unease. The feeling of urgency grows stronger with time. It presses inward, tightening the chest and sharpening awareness. Standing still becomes uncomfortable. Thoughts accelerate, scanning for threats that cannot be identified. The bridge seems to demand movement, insisting that lingering is a mistake. Some visitors begin walking faster without realizing it. Their steps quicken to match the rhythm they hear, falling into sync with unseen motion. The coughing grows louder during these moments, echoing more clearly, as if proximity matters. The smell of oil and smoke thickens slightly, carried on the breath of the crossing. Those who try to slow down feel resistance. Not physical force, but psychological pressure. The air feels charged, heavy with expectation. Pausing brings a sense of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, as if an important moment is unfolding and delay could have consequences. Looking down at the river offers little comfort. The water moves steadily, indifferent to the tension above. Reflections blur and stretch, broken by ripples that catch stray light. Occasionally, movement appears in the reflection that does not correspond to anything above, shapes flickering across the surface before dissolving. The coughing returns in bursts. It sounds closer now, almost beside the listener, then fades abruptly. The footsteps seem to rush past them, brushing close without contact. Air shifts suddenly, disturbed by rapid movement. Shadows streak by, leaving behind a brief chill that fades quickly but leaves the skin alert. Despite the intensity, nothing ever appears directly. No figures step into view. No source reveals itself. The bridge remains visually empty, its structure unchanged. Visitors concentrate on reaching the far side, counting steps, fixing their gaze ahead. The bridge feels longer than it should, stretching distance subtly, making progress feel slower than expected. The urgency pushes from behind, encouraging speed, yet the path refuses to shorten. When the end of the bridge finally arrives, relief is immediate. Stepping onto solid ground eases the pressure. The coughing fades. The footsteps dissolve into silence. The smell of oil and smoke thins, replaced by night air that feels suddenly clean. Muscles relax without conscious effort. Looking back, the bridge appears still. No shadows move along the rails. No sound carries across the span. The crossing looks exactly as it did before, quiet and unremarkable. The contrast leaves visitors questioning what they experienced. The feeling does not vanish completely. Even after leaving the area, many report lingering tension, a sense that something remains unfinished. They speak of urgency without event, of motion without presence. The bridge, they say, remembers times when haste mattered, when crossing quickly meant the difference between safety and loss. The smells, the sounds, and the shadows feel like impressions rather than hauntings. They repeat patterns of movement and stress, preserved in the structure and the air. The bridge does not create them. It carries them, replaying fragments whenever night falls and the conditions align. Shell Rock River crossing continues to serve its purpose. Cars pass. People cross. The river flows beneath, unchanged. Most will never notice anything beyond the routine. A few will visit at night and feel the shift immediately. They will smell oil and smoke where none should be. They will hear coughing and hurried steps that do not belong to anyone they can see. They will watch shadows race across the rails, driven by an urgency that never resolves. And when they leave, they will carry that feeling with them, a quiet reminder that some places hold moments of pressure so intense they never fully release, replaying again and again for anyone who happens to pass through at the wrong hour. Raccoon River rail span stretches across a slow and winding section of water, its steel rails running straight and narrow between wooded banks. By day, the bridge appears ordinary, weathered by years of exposure but solid and unmoving. Trains pass without hesitation. The river below slides quietly beneath the span, carrying leaves and reflections downstream. As evening settles, the first change becomes noticeable to those who linger. The rails grow cold far earlier than the surrounding air. Even in mild weather, the steel loses warmth quickly, turning sharply chilled to the touch. Wooden ties follow soon after, their surfaces stiffening as if exposed to winter long before the season arrives. The cold feels localized, confined to the bridge itself rather than the landscape around it. Visitors often dismiss the sensation at first. Metal cools quickly after sunset. Moisture from the river can lower temperature. These explanations hold briefly, until frost begins to form. Thin white patterns creep along the ties and rails, spreading in delicate lines that shimmer faintly in low light. The frost appears even when nearby ground remains dry and unfrozen. The river continues to flow unchanged beneath the bridge. Standing on the span creates a sense of separation from the banks. Sound carries oddly, stretching and thinning as it moves. Footsteps echo more than expected, bouncing off steel and wood before dissolving into the night air. The bridge feels longer after dark, its far end harder to judge. Then the whispers begin. At first, they are barely audible, slipping beneath the sound of water and wind. Soft murmurs rise from below the bridge, indistinct and layered. They do not form clear words. They drift upward like breath, touching the underside of the span before fading. Listening closely reveals rhythm rather than language. The whispers overlap and separate, rising and falling in waves. Some sound distant. Others feel close enough to be just beneath the listener's feet. The effect is subtle but persistent, difficult to ignore once noticed. Those who lean over the railing often feel the cold deepen. Air rises from the river in a steady chill, wrapping around hands and face. Frost thickens along the ties nearby, brightening in the dim light. The bridge seems to draw warmth downward, pulling it out of the body and into the steel. As the night advances, the whispers grow clearer. Individual tones separate slightly, though words remain just beyond understanding. The sound gains urgency without volume, pressing closer rather than louder. It fills the space beneath the bridge, echoing faintly against stone supports and water. Visitors report the sensation of being addressed without being spoken to. Standing still makes the whispers stronger. Movement disrupts them briefly, but they return as soon as footsteps slow. The sound feels patient, waiting for attention rather than demanding it. Approaching midnight brings a noticeable shift. The frost spreads farther along the span, covering ties in a thin, even layer. Rails gleam pale under moonlight, their surfaces slick and cold. The whispers intensify. They rise steadily from beneath the bridge, filling the space with overlapping tones that seem to circle the listener. The sound no longer feels distant. It presses upward, surrounding legs and feet, as if the cold itself carries the voices. Those who remain on the span near midnight often feel drained. Limbs grow heavy. Fingers stiffen despite gloves or pockets. The cold feels deeper than temperature alone, settling into muscles and joints. The river below reflects little light at this hour. Its surface darkens into a slow-moving sheet, broken only by faint ripples. Shadows gather beneath the bridge, thickening around the supports. The whispers seem to come from this darkness, though nothing visible moves within it. Local accounts offer quiet explanations. The rail span was built to cross a section of river known for difficult conditions. Ice formed early here. Fog lingered longer than expected. Trains slowed as they approached, and workers learned to listen carefully when passing over the water at night. Sounds carry differently over water. Steel holds temperature in strange ways. The bridge may simply gather and repeat what passes beneath it, echoing natural forces in unsettling patterns. Others believe the river remembers. Water flows constantly, but it also holds history, pressing it against anything built within its path. The bridge interrupts that flow, anchoring itself in place while the river moves on. The whispers may be nothing more than the river pressing back, reminding the structure of what lies beneath. What makes Raccoon River rail span unsettling is not danger, but persistence. The cold arrives reliably after sunset. Frost forms even when it should not. The whispers grow louder as midnight approaches, then fade again as the hour passes. The pattern repeats without escalation, without resolution. Those who leave the bridge shortly after midnight often notice the change immediately. The cold loosens its grip. The whispers soften, sinking back into the sound of flowing water. Within minutes, the bridge feels ordinary again, though the memory of the experience lingers. By morning, no trace remains. Rails are dry. Ties show no frost. The river flows quietly, reflecting daylight as it always has. The span carries trains without hesitation, its nighttime behavior erased by sun and motion. Those who stood on the bridge during the late hours remember it clearly. They recall the unnatural cold, the pale frost spreading underfoot, the voices rising from beneath the span. They remember how the whispers seemed to grow with the passing of time, reaching their strongest just before midnight. Raccoon River rail span continues to serve its purpose, connecting one bank to the other without pause. Most who cross it never notice anything unusual. But on certain nights, when the air cools and the river moves quietly below, the bridge changes. The rails grow cold. Frost forms where it should not. Whispers rise from beneath the structure, growing stronger as midnight approaches. The span does not threaten. It does not warn. It simply listens, gathers the cold, and allows the river below to speak in low, persistent tones. Reminding anyone who lingers that some places hold on to the night long after the sun has gone. Little Sioux River Bridge spans a broad stretch of dark water. Its steel frame rising above currents that move steadily toward the distance. By day, the crossing feels ordinary. The river glides beneath. Fields open wide on either side. The bridge carries footsteps and passing vehicles without resistance. Nothing suggests the unease that settles in after sunset. When night arrives, the air changes. The temperature drops quickly, and wind gathers along the open span. It does not arrive in brief gusts. It presses steadily, pushing against anyone who steps onto the bridge after dark. Crossing becomes work. Each step forward must be measured. The wind does not behave like weather. It does not swirl or shift direction easily. It pushes from the same angle, consistent and persistent, as though the bridge itself is guiding the flow. Those who pause feel the pressure increase slightly, urging movement rather than rest. As eyes adjust to the darkness, points of light appear along the railing. Small lanterns glow at irregular intervals, their flames steady despite the wind. They cast warm circles of light across the metal, revealing figures standing beside them. They do not move. Their posture is upright and patient. Hands hold lanterns at waist height, fingers wrapped firmly around handles that do not sway. The wind seems to push harder at this point, as if testing resolve. The lantern light flickers faintly across the walkway, illuminating boots, hands, breath visible in the cool air. No sound comes from the figures. No greeting. No acknowledgement. They never speak. Approaching one feels wrong, yet unavoidable when the path narrows between wind and railing. The lantern light reveals clothing that appears out of place, neither modern nor clearly old, textures softened by shadow. The figures remain still, watching the water, waiting. Dread settles in the chest without warning. Not panic, but a heavy certainty that something irreversible has been recognized. The feeling drains strength from arms and legs. Breathing becomes shallow. The wind seems louder, closer, pressing inward from all sides. The gaze does not follow movement. It holds steady, fixed on the observer for a brief moment, then returns to the river below. That single exchange is enough to leave most shaken. People look away quickly, instinctively breaking contact, and the pressure eases slightly. The lanterns continue to burn. Their light reflects faintly on the water, creating broken lines that stretch and dissolve with the current. Shadows from the figures fall across the deck, elongated and distorted, pointing not backward or forward, but downward toward the river. Some visitors attempt to speak. Their voices sound thin, carried away by wind before reaching the figures. There is no response. The silence feels intentional, as though speech is unnecessary here. As people move past, the figures remain where they are. They do not turn. They do not react. The wind does not affect them. Lantern flames remain upright and calm, unaffected by the force that presses so strongly against everyone else. Those who linger too long feel the bridge change. The span seems longer than before. Distance stretches. The far end appears farther away, lights dimmer. Fatigue sets in quickly, as if the wind is pulling energy directly from the body. Some report a sensation of leaning forward without meaning to, drawn toward the railing and the dark water below. Instinct warns against stopping. Those who pause feel the wind push harder, testing balance, urging movement either forward or back. Standing still feels unsafe, unnatural, as if the bridge itself does not allow hesitation. A few report turning back after passing several figures. When they do, the lanterns behind them appear fewer than before, spaced farther apart. The wind shifts slightly, pushing from a new angle, making return feel more difficult than the approach. The dread does not fully lift until solid ground is reached. The figures do not follow. They remain on the bridge, watching the river, unmoved by departure or arrival. When visitors reach the end of the span and look back, the lights are often gone, leaving only darkness and the sound of wind rushing across metal. By morning, the bridge feels ordinary again. Wind moves naturally. The railing stands empty. No lanterns remain. Daylight reveals nothing unusual along the span. Locals speak carefully about Little Sioux River Bridge. They say the wind has always been stronger there at night. That the river draws attention after dark. Some believe the lantern figures are not meant to stop travelers, but to mark something. A boundary. A moment of crossing that carries weight beyond distance. Animals avoid the bridge after sunset. Birds roost elsewhere. Insects vanish from the railings early. The area grows quiet. In a way that feels deliberate, as if sound itself steps aside. Those who experience the lanterns often remember the eyes. Not the faces, which remain unclear. But the weight of the gaze. The way it settles instantly, without curiosity or surprise. The way it feels less like being seen and more like being recognized. They remember the wind pushing back, the lanterns glowing steadily, the silence that followed every unspoken question. The lanterns glowing steadily. The silence that followed every unspoken question. They remember the dread that arrived without explanation. And faded only with distance. After dark, the wind rises. Lanterns may appear. Figures may stand along the railing, silent and watchful. And those who meet their gaze understand, without words, why the bridge feels less like a crossing and more like a test. A place where movement matters. Where looking too long carries a cost. And where silence speaks louder than sound. The upper Iowa River crossing lies in a stretch of land where the river cuts quietly through stone and grass, far from towns and traffic. By day, the bridge appears unremarkable, a simple span over slow-moving water. Trees line the banks. The current slides beneath without effort. Nothing about the place suggests disturbance. Silence is the first thing people notice. Not ordinary quiet, but complete absence. No insects hum in the air. No birds call from the trees. Leaves do not rustle, even when the surrounding countryside feels alive with motion. The silence forms a boundary around the crossing, clear and immediate, as though sound itself has chosen to stop here. Visitors often pause before stepping onto the bridge. The quiet feels heavy, pressing inward. It is not peaceful. It is expectant. The river below moves without noise. Its surface smooth and dark, reflecting the underside of the bridge like a held breath. Once on the crossing, sound behaves differently. Footsteps land softly, yet each step seems amplified inside the head rather than in the air. Clothing brushing against skin sounds louder than it should. Most unsettling is the sound of breathing. Each inhale and exhale echoes clearly, bouncing back from unseen surfaces, as though the bridge itself is listening. The echo does not fade. It lingers a fraction of a second longer than expected, repeating softly before dissolving. Visitors instinctively slow their breathing, trying to quiet the sound, only to notice the silence deepen further, making each breath stand out even more. Halfway across, many feel the pressure begin. It starts subtly, a sensation of weight across the chest, easy to mistake for cold air or tension. With each step forward, the feeling grows stronger. Breathing remains possible, but it requires effort. The chest feels compressed, as if the air has thickened around the lungs. There is no visible cause. The bridge does not sway. The air does not move. Wind remains absent. The pressure arrives without warning and increases without urgency, steady and persistent. Some visitors stop walking at this point. Standing still intensifies everything. Breathing echoes more clearly. The silence feels closer, narrowing awareness to the body alone. The river below seems farther away, its presence felt rather than heard. Others continue forward, driven by instinct rather than intention. The center of the bridge feels different from either end. Here, the silence is deepest. The absence of sound feels complete, as though the world beyond the crossing has been temporarily removed. Even thoughts seem quieter, slowed by the weight in the air. Those who turn back before reaching the center often feel immediate relief. The pressure loosens. Breathing deepens. Sound returns gradually, first faintly, then fully. Those who reach the far side report a different experience. The pressure lifts suddenly, almost all at once, leaving a hollow sensation behind. Breathing feels exaggerated for several moments, as if the lungs are relearning how to move freely. Sound returns unevenly, rushing in rather than settling. Looking back at the bridge, it appears unchanged. The silence remains contained to the crossing itself, stopping abruptly at the edges. A few steps away, the world resumes its normal rhythm. Birds call. Water gurgles softly. Grass shifts in the breeze. Local knowledge treats the crossing with quiet respect. The upper Iowa River has carved its path patiently, cutting through stone over long stretches of time. The land here holds pressure deep below the surface, layers of earth compressed and unmoving. Some say the crossing sits directly above a place where that pressure rises close to the surface, not physically, but perceptually. The silence, they say, is not emptiness. It is concentration. Sound does not disappear. It withdraws, leaving space for internal noise to become dominant. Breathing becomes loud because there is nothing else to compete with it. The pressure on the chest is described as the body responding to sudden awareness, the weight of being fully present without distraction. Others believe the crossing marks a boundary. Not between places, but between states of attention. Stepping onto the bridge shifts focus inward. The world narrows. The sensation is uncomfortable because it removes distance from oneself. The bridge does not trap anyone. Those who choose to stop can turn back at any time. The pressure never becomes painful. It never escalates beyond discomfort. It simply persists, encouraging movement. Urging visitors to either complete the crossing or retreat. Despite the unsettling sensations, the crossing is not considered dangerous. No accidents are associated with it. No structural issues exist. The experience leaves no lasting physical effects. What remains is memory and heightened awareness. Many who cross once choose not to return. They describe the experience as deeply personal, difficult to explain. The silence feels too intimate, the echo of breathing too revealing. Others return deliberately, curious to see if the sensation repeats, and it often does, with similar intensity. The crossing behaves consistently. It does not change with season or weather. Night and day bring the same silence. Rain does not break it. Snow does not soften it. The absence of sound remains contained, precise, and unwavering. By daylight, the upper Iowa River crossing looks like any other bridge. Nothing marks it as unusual. No signs warn visitors. No barriers restrict access. Only those who step onto it discover the quiet waiting there. And when they do, they learn how loud their own breathing can be, how heavy air can feel without movement, and how deeply silence can press against the chest when the world decides, briefly, to stop speaking. The bridge remains where it is, suspended over quiet water, offering no explanation. It simply waits, silent and still, ready to remind the next visitor that sometimes the most unsettling sound is the one that comes from within. Floyd River Rail Bridge stretches across a narrow bend of water where the land flattens and the banks fall away into reeds and shadow. By day, the bridge looks sturdy and quiet, its rails running straight and purposeful over the river below. Trains no longer pass here, but the structure remains, suspended above slow-moving water that reflects the sky without complaint. As evening settles, the character of the river begins to change. The surface darkens first, losing its smooth reflection as light fades. Wind slips through the metal framework of the bridge, creating low tones that echo briefly and then disappear. The area feels isolated, far removed from towns and traffic, with only the sound of insects and distant water to mark the passage of time. After nightfall, the river no longer feels calm. Without warning, the water beneath the bridge begins to churn. What was once a steady flow becomes restless, swirling and folding in on itself. Ripples collide, forming uneven waves that slap against the banks. The movement feels concentrated directly beneath the bridge. Visitors standing above often lean over the railing, trying to understand the sudden change. That is when the splashing begins. Sharp bursts of water break the surface, loud and erratic, as if bodies are moving just beneath the current. Moments later, voices rise from the river. Shouting carries upward through the night, strained and urgent. The sounds are unmistakably human, layered and overlapping, as if multiple voices are calling out at once. The words are difficult to distinguish, broken by distance and water, but the emotion is clear. The voices sound desperate, fighting against the noise of the river. Those who hear them often freeze. The shouting echoes beneath the bridge, bouncing off metal supports and disappearing into the night. It feels close, far closer than the Rivera's width should allow. Visitors scan the surface, searching for signs of people in distress, but the water reveals nothing clearly. Then shapes begin to appear. Beneath the surface, darker forms move against the current. Arms seem to reach upward, fingers breaking the surface before slipping back below. The movement is frantic, uneven, as if struggling against a force stronger than the river itself. The water churns harder now. Waves collide beneath the bridge, creating a hollow roar that fills the air. The shouting grows louder, then more fragmented. Some voices fade while others surge forward. The splashing intensifies, sending ripples racing outward. Until the entire stretch of river feels alive with motion. For those watching, time stretches painfully. Seconds feel long and heavy. The urge to act clashes with uncertainty. There is no clear place to reach, no visible person to help. The river seems to resist understanding, concealing more than it reveals. Then, without warning, everything stops. The splashing cuts off mid-motion. The shouting ceases instantly, leaving no echo behind. The water settles with unsettling speed, smoothing itself into a slow, dark flow as if nothing ever disturbed it. Silence rushes in, deep and complete. Visitors often hold their breath, waiting for the sounds to return. The river continues moving calmly beneath the bridge, reflecting faint starlight and distant shadows. The air feels hollow, emptied of whatever filled it moments before. Looking down reveals no trace of struggle. No ripples remain. No shapes move beneath the surface. The river looks exactly as it did before, calm and unremarkable. Only memory suggests that anything happened at all. Stories about Floyd River Rail Bridge have circulated quietly among locals for years. Older residents speak of nights when the river seemed angry, when sounds carried farther than they should. Some recall warnings passed down, advising people not to linger on the bridge after dark. The bridge itself has witnessed decades of passage. Trains once crossed regularly, shaking the structure and stirring the water below. Workers maintained the rails at all hours, sometimes hearing strange noises from the river beneath them. Over time, traffic stopped, but the bridge remained, holding its position over the same stretch of water. Some believe the disturbances are echoes. The river may be replaying moments of chaos, impressions left behind by past events that never fully resolved. Water carries memory differently than land, shifting and reshaping it, releasing it only under certain conditions. At night, when the world quiets, those memories may surface. Others suggest natural causes. Currents can change rapidly after dark. Temperature differences can alter water movement, creating sudden turbulence. Sound travels differently over water at night, distorting wildlife noise into something that resembles shouting. Shadows beneath the surface can appear human when imagination fills the gaps. Yet those who witness the events insist the experience feels too specific to dismiss. The voices sound intentional. The splashing follows patterns of struggle rather than random motion. The abrupt silence feels controlled, as if something has chosen to stop rather than fade. Those who remain on the bridge after the silence often feel watched. Not from the banks or the water, but from the space itself. The air feels alert, attentive. Staying longer brings no return of sound, only a growing sense that the moment has passed and will not repeat on demand. Most choose to leave quickly. Once away from the bridge, the tension releases. The night resumes its normal rhythm. Insects return. The wind settles. Looking back, the bridge stands dark and quiet, offering no hint of what unfolded above the river moments before. By daylight, Floyd River Rail Bridge appears harmless. The river flows steadily beneath, carrying leaves and reflections without turbulence. Standing on the rails in sunlight, it is difficult to imagine the violence of movement and sound that can rise from the water after dark. But when night returns and the bridge stands alone over the river once more, the conditions align again. The water may begin to churn. Voices may rise briefly from below. Shapes may struggle beneath the surface, unseen and unresolved. And then, as always, the river will fall silent, keeping its secrets. Leaving those who witnessed it to wonder whether they heard echoes of the past or something that still waits beneath the surface, just out of sight. Maple River Bridge spans a gentle curve of water and low banks, a straightforward crossing that rarely draws attention during the day. Sunlight moves easily across its surface, and the river below reflects open sky and slow clouds. From end to end, the distance feels modest and familiar, a place crossed without thought. After sunset, that sense of scale changes. The light thins quickly, and the bridge settles into shadow. Lamps along the approach glow softly, but the span itself seems to absorb illumination rather than reflect it. The river darkens into a single moving surface, and the far end of the bridge becomes harder to judge. Visitors stepping onto the bridge at night often notice the first sign immediately. Walking feels normal at first. Footsteps sound steady and clear. The railings pass by at a familiar pace. Yet after several minutes, something feels off. The end should be close by now, but it remains distant, suspended just beyond reach. People walk longer than expected. They check their pace, confident they have not slowed. The rhythm of steps remains consistent. Still, the bridge stretches ahead, offering the same repeating view of rails, boards, and shadow. The sense of progress fades, replaced by quiet uncertainty. Some pause to look back. The starting point appears farther away than it should be, softened by darkness and distance. Turning forward again brings no relief. The far end looks unchanged, neither closer nor farther than before. The bridge feels balanced between departure and arrival, refusing to favor either direction. Time begins to behave differently here. Minutes feel longer, yet oddly compressed. Visitors struggle to estimate how long they have been walking. Watches and phones offer little reassurance, their displays feeling abstract and unreliable. Attention drifts inward, drawn away from measurement and toward sensation. The air feels still, yet movement continues. Footsteps echo with slight delay, as if sound itself is lagging behind action. The river below flows steadily, but its movement feels detached, unfolding at a different pace. The world seems layered, with the bridge occupying a separate rhythm. Some visitors report looping back. They walk with intention, focused on reaching the far side, only to arrive at a familiar spot. A distinctive mark on the railing appears again. A section of wood with a noticeable split returns to view. The realization brings a sharp jolt of confusion. The loop does not feel like turning around. There is no moment of reversal, no clear change in direction. The path simply folds back on itself, guiding walkers through the same space without their awareness. The bridge does not announce the repetition. It allows it to happen quietly. Others experience the loop more subtly. They do not recognize specific details, only a growing sense that progress is not being made. Fatigue sets in without explanation. The bridge feels self-contained, closed off from urgency. What matters is the next step, then the next, each one landing on familiar boards that seem to exist outside sequence. Those who stop walking notice another change. Standing still brings a strange sensation, as if the bridge continues moving around them. The air feels gently pressured, nudging awareness forward. Remaining motionless becomes uncomfortable, encouraging movement even when direction feels uncertain. Distant noises from the banks fade quickly, swallowed by open space. The bridge holds its own quiet, broken only by footsteps and the low sound of the river. Without external reference, the mind struggles to anchor itself. Some visitors try counting steps. The numbers blur. Concentration slips. The count resets without clear reason. The change is subtle, almost imperceptible. A slight difference in the way light falls. The far end of the bridge feels closer. Suddenly, the far end of the bridge feels closer. Reaching solid ground brings immediate clarity. Stepping off the bridge restores balance. The air feels normal again. Sound regains direction. Looking back, the span appears ordinary, its length unchanged, its structure stable and unmoving. Visitors often laugh softly in relief. They question their experience, attributing it to fatigue or imagination. Yet the memory lingers, difficult to dismiss entirely. The feeling of stretched distance and altered time remains vivid, more like a sensation than a thought. Those who return to the bridge during daylight notice nothing unusual. The crossing takes exactly as long as expected. Landmarks appear and pass predictably. The river flows beneath at a steady pace. Nothing suggests the confusion of night. Locals speak of the bridge with quiet familiarity. They describe it as a place where evenings feel longer, where walks can take unexpected turns. The river, they say, moves slowly here, and the bridge seems to follow its lead, allowing time to pool and drift rather than flow straight. The bridge does not trap visitors. It delays them. It stretches moments, folds distance, and blurs sequence without force or threat. Those who experience it rarely feel afraid. Instead, they feel temporarily unmoored, caught between moments. It carries people across water and then, sometimes, carries them through a space where time loosens its hold. The experience leaves no mark on the structure, no evidence behind. Only memory. Those who walk it after sunset remember the feeling of walking longer than expected. Of seeing the same place again without turning back. Of sensing time slip sideways rather than forward. And when they cross again under the same fading light, a part of them listens closely, wondering if the bridge will stretch once more, inviting them into its quiet, endless passage, where minutes wander and distance forgets how long it is supposed to be. Boone County Rail Trestle rises above a shallow valley where trees press close and the ground remains uneven and damp. The structure is old, built of heavy timber and iron, its wooden supports darkened by years of rain and exposure. Trains still pass overhead, their weight shaking the beams, their noise briefly filling the valley before fading again. Even in daylight, the trestle never feels completely still. The wooden supports creak constantly, responding to wind, temperature, and their own age. The sound is low and rhythmic, like something shifting its weight again and again. It is easy to dismiss as natural movement, yet the noise never fully stops, even when the air is calm and the ground is quiet. Light drains quickly from the valley, swallowed by the height of the structure and the surrounding trees. Shadows stretch and overlap, filling the space between the supports. The creaking grows more noticeable in the quiet, each sound carrying farther than expected. After sunset, the first voices are heard. They come softly at first, drifting through the darkness beneath the trestle. The calls sound human, strained and uneven, as if spoken with effort. They do not echo sharply, but spread slowly, lingering in the air before fading. The words are difficult to make out, but the tone is unmistakable. The voices are calling for help. They rise from different points beneath the structure, sometimes close, sometimes farther away. One voice may sound alone, followed by another from a different direction. The calls never overlap completely. They arrive in sequence, leaving just enough silence between them to draw attention. The sound feels urgent but restrained, as though whoever is calling is unable to raise their voice fully. The calls do not grow louder when answered. They simply repeat, patient and persistent. Looking beneath the trestle reveals movement. Shadows shift between the wooden supports, sliding along the ground and climbing partway up the beams. The creaking of the supports continues overhead. The creaking of the supports continues overhead. Each sound seems to answer the movement below, as if the structure itself is reacting. The trestle feels alive in these moments, not hostile, but aware. Those who respond to the voices describe a sudden change within themselves. Calling back feels natural at first, almost automatic. The words leave the mouth before thought can intervene. Immediately after responding, a sharp wave of fear follows, sudden and intense. The body tightens. Breathing becomes shallow. The urge to retreat arrives without explanation. Alongside the fear comes regret. Not regret for being there, but for having answered at all. The voices fall silent when answered. The calls stop abruptly, leaving the valley in an unnatural quiet. The shadows beneath the trestle pause, then dissolve back into darkness. The creaking overhead continues, slower now, stretching the silence between sounds. Those who answered often report feeling exposed. The space beneath the trestle feels larger and emptier than before. The darkness deepens. The air feels colder against the skin. Even without visible movement, the sense of being watched intensifies. Most choose to leave at this point. Moving away from the trestle brings gradual relief. The fear softens into unease. The regret fades slowly, lingering like an aftertaste. Looking back reveals nothing unusual. The structure stands as it always has, wooden supports silhouetted against the night. Local stories speak quietly of the trestle's past. It was built quickly to meet demand, its supports raised by crews working long hours in difficult conditions. Accidents were not uncommon. Falls, injuries, and moments where help arrived too late became part of the structure's history, absorbed into its wood and iron. Some believe the voices are echoes of those moments, replaying calls that once went unanswered. The shadows may be impressions left by movement repeated too often to disappear completely. The regret felt by those who respond could be the weight of interruption, of stepping into something unresolved. Others suggest the trestle itself shapes perception. Sound carries unpredictably beneath it. Shadows form easily in uneven light. The mind fills gaps with meaning when isolation and darkness combine. Yet this explanation struggles to account for the consistency of the experiences and the shared emotional response. What makes Boone County rail trestle unsettling is not aggression, but consequence. The voices do not lure with promises. They do not threaten. They ask for help. Responding does not bring immediate harm, but it does bring something internal, a sudden realization that some calls are not meant to be answered by those passing through. As midnight approaches, the activity diminishes. The voices grow less frequent, then stop entirely. The shadows retreat fully into darkness. The trestle continues to creak, steady and unchanged, as if returning to its natural state. By morning, the valley appears ordinary again. Sunlight filters through the supports. Birds move between trees. The creaking blends into the background noise of the day. Nothing suggests the voices or the fear they caused hours earlier. Those who experience the trestle at night often struggle to describe what unsettled them most. Some focus on the sound of the voices. Others recall the way fear and regret arrive together, without warning. Many remember the moment they answered and immediately wished they had not. Boone County Rail Trestle remains in use, carrying trains overhead and casting long shadows below. Most who pass beneath it never hear anything unusual. Most never feel compelled to respond to unseen voices. But on certain nights, when the valley grows quiet and the wooden supports creak without pause, the trestle reveals another layer of itself. Voices call softly for help. And those who answer learn quickly that not every call is meant to be returned. And not every act of response leaves the responder unchanged. Desolate Prairie Bridge rises from a stretch of open land where the horizon feels endlessly far away. By day, the isolation feels peaceful. By night, it feels exposed in a way that is difficult to ignore. The sky opens wide and dark, pressing down with the weight of empty space. Wind moves freely here, uninterrupted, carrying distant sounds that seem closer than they should be. The bridge becomes a thin line across the landscape, elevated and obvious, a place where there is nowhere to hide. Those who step onto the bridge often notice the silence first. It is not the absence of sound, but a thinning of it. The wind continues to move, but it feels muted, as if absorbed by the land. Footsteps echo sharply against the bridge surface, each step announcing presence across the empty fields. It is then that figures appear. At first, they are only shapes at the edge of vision. Dark silhouettes standing where the fields meet the sky. They are far enough away to dismiss easily, mistaken for fence posts or shadows cast by uneven ground. But when attention settles on them, the shapes remain. They stand upright. Human in outline. Motionless at first. Visitors pause, narrowing their eyes, trying to judge distance. The figures are too far away to make out details. No faces. No clothing. Just forms against the dim horizon, separated from the bridge by a long stretch of open land. Then they begin to move. Slowly. Deliberately. The figures approach from multiple directions, their pace unhurried and steady. Each step seems measured, as if distance itself is being carefully controlled. They do not rush. They do not hesitate. They simply advance. Those on the bridge begin to walk faster, putting distance between themselves and the approaching shapes. Footsteps quicken. The bridge creaks softly beneath the shift in pace. Yet something is wrong. No matter how fast one walks, the figures remain the same distance away. They do not gain ground. They do not fall behind. They hold position in the landscape, perfectly balanced between near and far, as if attached to the observer rather than the land. The faster someone moves, the more obvious the effect becomes. Some break into a run. The bridge rushes beneath their feet. Wind tears at clothing. Heartbeats pound in the ears. Still, when they glance toward the fields, the figures are unchanged, maintaining their distance with unsettling precision. Panic sets in, sharp and immediate. The mind searches for logic. Perspective distortion. Darkness playing tricks on depth. Fatigue. Yet the figures remain steady, approaching without ever arriving. The open prairie offers no distraction. There are no buildings to retreat into, no trees to pass behind. The bridge becomes the only path, and it feels suddenly too long, too narrow, too exposed. Every step forward feels watched. Some visitors stop entirely. When they do, the figures stop as well. The synchronized pause confirms what many already fear. The figures are not walking across the land so much as holding a position relative to whoever notices them. Those who turn back experience the same result. The figures shift orientation without visible movement, appearing ahead again at the same measured distance. The wind intensifies in these moments. It presses hard against the body, pushing from unpredictable angles. The sound of it roars briefly, then drops away, leaving an unnatural quiet that sharpens every thought. People report feeling exposed in a way that goes beyond fear. A sense of being evaluated rather than chased. The figures do not threaten. They do not signal. They simply approach without closing the gap, as if waiting for something to change. Some describe the feeling as being centered in the bridge. As though stepping onto it placed them at the center of an unseen boundary. The prairie stretches endlessly, yet the space around the bridge feels contained, controlled. Those who manage to leave do so abruptly. They turn and run without looking again, focused only on reaching solid ground beyond the span. Panic drives them forward, overriding the need to understand. Once distance is placed between them and the bridge, the sensation fades quickly. When they finally stop, breathless and shaken, the prairie looks empty again. No figures remain. The fields stretch outward under moonlight, quiet and undisturbed. The bridge stands alone, unchanged, offering no sign of what occurred moments before. By daylight, desolate Prairie Bridge appears harmless. Sunlight flattens the landscape, making distances easy to judge. The open fields feel calm rather than threatening. Those who return during the day find nothing to confirm their nighttime experience. Only wide land and open sky. Locals speak carefully about the bridge. They say the prairie has always been deceptive after dark. That distance behaves differently when there is nothing to measure it against. Some believe the figures are reflections of the traveler, echoes of movement cast outward into the land. Others suggest the bridge marks a place where space itself feels thinner. Where the land responds to presence, adjusting perception in subtle but powerful ways. Animals avoid the bridge at night. Cattle keep their distance. Wildlife paths bend away from the span. The prairie grows unusually quiet around it after sunset, as if sound itself retreats. Those who experience the figures rarely return after dark. They remember the way panic rose without warning. The frustration of moving without progress. The certainty that something was approaching even when it never closed the gap. Desolate Prairie Bridge remains standing, alone among open fields. At night, the land stretches outward endlessly. Figures may appear at a distance. They may begin to approach. And no matter how fast one walks, they remain exactly where they are. Waiting. Watching. Turning an ordinary crossing into a moment of pure exposure. Where the only escape is leaving the bridge behind. And never looking back. Last Stop Bridge stretches across a quiet cut of land where the rail line once ended and nowhere else waited beyond. The tracks still reach the span, iron lines narrowing as they approach the edge, then stopping with a blunt finality that feels deliberate rather than abandoned. By night, the bridge remembers what it was. The air cools quickly after sunset, and the land around the tracks grows unnaturally still. No distant traffic hums. No wind stirs the grass. The bridge stands alone beneath the sky, holding the silence as if it were part of its structure. Visitors often arrive without knowing why the place feels different. They step onto the gravel near the tracks and feel the ground firm beneath their boots. But something about the space ahead resists casual movement. The bridge does not invite crossing. It waits. As darkness deepens, the first sound appears. A whistle carries across the open land, long and clear, echoing once before fading. It is unmistakable, the sound of arrival rather than departure. It does not rush. It does not waver. It announces that something has reached its final point. Moments later, small lights flicker along the tracks. They appear in sequence, traveling toward the bridge as if following a path that no longer exists. Each light glows briefly, then goes dark, leaving the next to appear. The pattern stops at the bridge itself, where the final glow lingers for a heartbeat longer before fading. Those who stand close during these moments feel a shift within themselves. An overwhelming sense of finality settles in, deep and quiet. The bridge feels closer than before. Distance shortens. The space between visitor and structure narrows without movement. Some report the sensation that the bridge is no longer ahead of them, but around them, enclosing the moment rather than occupying a place. Thoughts slow. The past feels heavier than the present. The future feels distant, vague, less important. Attention turns inward, drawn toward stillness rather than motion. Standing beside the tracks becomes enough. Many describe the feeling as being asked to stay. Not commanded. Not threatened. Simply invited to remain where arrival has already occurred. The sensation carries comfort within it, the relief of no longer needing to move forward. Those who linger often notice how quiet their own bodies become. Breathing slows. Muscles relax. The urge to check the time or look at a phone fades. The world narrows to the bridge, the tracks, and the space where motion once ended. The whistle does not return. The lights do not flicker again. The moment does not escalate. It settles, waiting without impatience. Some visitors sit on the edge of the gravel or lean against a beam, unsure how long they have been there. The sense of finality deepens into something like rest, as though the bridge offers permission to stop carrying weight that has traveled too far. Others feel unease rise alongside the calm. They recognize the pull as something that should be acknowledged but not accepted. Instinct stirs, urging movement, reminding them that staying too long feels wrong in ways that cannot be articulated. Those who turn away feel the resistance immediately. Each step back feels heavier than the one before. The bridge seems to hold their attention, drawing the mind backward even as the body moves away. The finality lingers, clinging to thought like a question left unanswered. Breaking line of sight brings relief. The land opens again. Sound returns slowly. Insects resume their low chorus. Wind brushes the grass. Looking back, it appears unchanged. Tracks still end where they always have. Beams cast ordinary shadows. No lights glow. No whistle sounds. The place looks like a simple remnant of infrastructure left behind. Local stories speak of the bridge with quiet care. It was built to mark an ending, not a passage. Trains arrived here with full weight, carrying people and cargo to the final point on the line. Beyond it lay nothing but preparation for return. Arrival mattered more than departure. The line closed, the ritual ended abruptly. No final schedule. No gradual slowing. The last arrival happened, and then the world moved on. The bridge does not want company. It offers presence, not permanence. Those who respect the feeling and leave when it becomes too heavy experience no harm. Those who linger too long often report dreams of waiting rooms, quiet platforms, and doors that never open. The sense of finality fades with time, but it leaves a trace. Days later, visitors recall the stillness unexpectedly. During pauses in daily life, they feel the echo of that certainty, the calm that comes with knowing nothing more is required. Last Stop Bridge remains where it has always been, marking the end of a path that once mattered deeply. At night, when the world quiets and motion feels optional, lights may flicker briefly along tracks that lead nowhere. And for those who stand close enough to feel it, the bridge will offer the same quiet understanding it always has. The only question left is whether to stay, or to turn back while the rest of the world is still willing to move on. Thank you for walking beside me across the haunted railroad bridges of Iowa tonight. These bridges were built to connect places, but they also connect moments of fear, loss, and unfinished stories. Steel may rust. Wood may rot. But memory endures. If you ever find yourself near a railroad bridge after dark and hear footsteps where no one stands, remember these tales. Some bridges are not meant to be crossed at night. And some paths remember every soul that walked them. Would you dare stand alone on one of these haunted bridges after midnight, or would you turn back before the rails carried you too far? Rest well, my friend. Until our next journey into the darkness.